we all got to check our heart for idols.
Yes,
Okay. We all got
yeah,
to check our heart for things that that may be keeping us away from what God desires for us,
right.
especially as it relates to one another. However, the church laying guilt on those who aren't serving, or lays guilt on those to serve more, and uses that as a tool to or as a mark of faithfulness
Yeah.
to God based upon their commitment to this church.
Yeah.
That to me is a problem. All right, welcome to the Church Dropout podcast. My name is Howland, and I'm joined by
Lisa. It sounded like you said, my name is Helen.
Okay. Well, my name is Howland. Thank you guys for tuning into the Church Dropout podcast. Church Dropout is a podcast. We talk about issues, topics, and teachings related to faith, life, and culture in ways that are sometimes funny, sometimes serious, but always insightful. If you have not already, please like, rate, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast at. Real quickly, I want to just remind you, not even remind you, I guess expose you to something that we're pushing into a little bit. I want to begin to get a little bit more active on other social media sites. One of them is Instagram. And so I'll post our Instagram. If you are on Instagram and you follow people on Instagram, if you wouldn't mind, please head over to Instagram and subscribe there as well, so that, you can get content. I may do something a little bit different on Instagram, just not only post or, cross promote platforms or anything like that, but, we might do some impromptu lives and different things like that on Instagram, or just share some raw thoughts and different things of that sort. So head over to Instagram for me if you wouldn't mind, and do what you do there. As I was saying, social media is not something that we do very often, or at least I don't do very often.
And I do very minimal. Like, I don't really post a lot of stuff. So, we do very minimal. Actually, I was looking at the last thing that was posted on my page, I think was our last anniversary, and it was something you said but I literally don't post anything.
You sound like you're trying to make a case, or like you're trying to prove something to me that you don't use.
I don't. I will check out other people's, videos or
So basically, you're
baby pictures.
You're just nosy.
No, I'd like to see how people are doing. No.
Nosy.
No. I don't think it's no. Honestly, if somebody's putting it on there, I'm not being nosy. You put it on there, so why? Like, I don't get that.
Yeah, but you're silent scrolling though.
No, because I'm liking it. If I like it, I'm not. You don't even know what you're talking about. No, silent scroll.
So head out to Instagram for us. We would highly appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you shaking your head?
Because you don't know what you're talking about.
What do you mean I don't know what I'm talking about?
Because you don't know what you're talking. You must do it. That's it right there. You must be silent scrolling. Yeah. Nosy.
No, I'm just not on social media.
Okay.
So, is this our first live argument?
I don't know. I know we did have one where we came back on after we just got done having an argument, and it was just the mood was just like blah.
Yeah, it's a mad podcast.
Oh, that's good. I like that. The mad podcast.
What would you do?
Just be mad.
Well, I know what that would look like for you. You just be silent.
And what would it look like for you?
I'd be yelling. Saying, talk to me. So anyway, enough of our marital issues on the Church Dropout podcast.
Going on 25 years.
Yeah.
25 years.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Moving closer to eternity, y'all.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man. Funny note, I heard one pastor, I thought this was so disrespectful, but I heard one pastor say, in black churches, pastors are always trying to be funny, from the pulpit. Part of their introduction is to be funny.
Yeah.
Not like Joel Osteen, but
No.
not like say a joke, but
Like
they
dad jokes.
Yeah. They try to have something pithy and funny to say.
You're right.
So anyway, he was up there and he was talking about his wife, and he said, how long they were married and all of that type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, thankfully Christ said there's no marriage in heaven. I was like, folks was like, oh.
Trust me, if he said that, I'm sure his wife was feeling the same way.
I hope so.
She probably said it first, and he stole it and used it for his.
Maybe.
Yeah,
but
that's how y'all be doing.
Oh, that's how y'all be doing? That's how who be doing? Jeez. Lord, I didn't say it. And, but it was probably a long ride home.
Okay.
That was probably a serious conversation there.
Okay.
But, so yeah, I really don't know what we're going to talk about. Oh yeah, I do. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I just remembered. I was going to freestyle, to be honest with you. I was going to throw something out there to you, but I do know what we are going to talk about on this one. Not that we just freestyle everything, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
We do plan for these type of things, but it's a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Part of podcasting is just talking about things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to talk about ministry guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I think it's something that's not talked about very often, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things like volunteer culture in church, stuff like that. You actually are the one who kind of brought the topic and the idea. But yeah, I think it's something that's not always talked about. I think I've shared this before, but you and I were at a, kind of a weekend, weekend stay in, marriage conference, retreat, whatever, kind of a little conference thing. I don't know if you remember what the guest speaker had said about, the church sometimes is parasitic on the family. I don't know if you remember that. But he said the church is parasitic on the family, meaning, the church has a way of sucking the life out of the family. And this was on the eve, so to speak, very close to when his wife had passed away. They had been married a very long time. And, but he said, hey, I think he was grieving a bit, but he was also saying that, man, the church can be parasitic on the family, kind of just sucks the life out on the family because there's expectations that is put on people and members of that particular community to serve and to be committed in a way that's dangerous. You know what I mean? And has some very dangerous implications. And so we're going to talk a little bit about ministry guilt, but you had read something just, I don't know if, we don't need to read all of it. I think what you read yesterday, I think would be a good segue, but you had read something, a story, and I'll let you kind of set it up if you want to set it up, but
sure.
I'll kick it to you.
So I was just reading this on, I believe it's Baylor's, like their education website. So somebody had wrote a story and it just was talking about like church burnout. And so, so he has this little story here. So it says, now, don't be laughing at me because
the writing is small on that phone.
It is small, but I'm telling y'all, I read to the boys, so I might really get into it.
Oh Lord, have mercy.
Because I love reading and they love listening to me read. So, all right.
Well, they do that. But
yes. Right. So, boy, Steve sure is touchy today. The pastor commented to his youth minister.
Wait. Is this reading Rainbow? I mean, because I didn't know you were going to get like.
Well, you have to emphasize, and there's commas and apostrophes and.
Boy, Steve.
You gotta leave me alone, okay?
Go. Do what you do.
Boy, Steve.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, I'll stop. Boy, Steve sure is touchy today. The pastor commented to his youth minister. I only asked him if he'd be at the revival meeting tonight, but he just stared at me and never said a word. Maybe Steve's one of those guys who thinks revival is for everyone else. Well, Pastor, the youth minister answered, Steve has been rather busy lately. What with the new junior high Sunday school class, his work on the building committee, and choir rehearsals. Plus, his wife just had a baby, remember? Well, I guess we're all busy, aren't we? The pastor replied sarcastically. You'd better remind Steve that all Sunday school teachers are required to attend the revival as a good witness to their class members. Be sure to tell him, huh?
The at the end kind of caught you off guard, huh? Be sure to tell him, huh? Like you act like I called you at the end of the story. I'm just playing. So that's funny.
But so when I read that, I was just like, wow, that reminds me of some churches that we've been a part of. And, and that, you have all these things that are going on at home and you're trying to be faithful and do things at church, but it's like juggling. You know what I mean? And you feel guilty sometimes when you choose your family first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or, other things maybe, because a lot of people at church have jobs outside of church. You know what I mean? So there's that guilt, like you said, ministry guilt, you know what I mean? And that can cause stress and heaviness on you, you know? And so when I read this story, I was just like, wow, it's like, yeah, but still, you still have to be here because it's not for you. It's because you got to be a good witness to somebody else.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? But to me burning myself out is not a good witness to somebody else.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, no, that's really good, Lisa. That's really good. And yeah, I mean, you listen to some of the things that were kind of said in that story and how they were responded to. It's sad, but it's true. Like, he did just have a baby.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or remember, right? Yeah. Or all of us are busy. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I think, again, a lot of this to me boils down to church culture in general, because this also happens actually. Let me think. Let me ask you a question. Do you think this happens more in mega churches or mini churches?
Ooh,
or, honestly, big churches or small churches?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Honestly, I would say small churches.
Yeah.
I really would say, because I feel like when there's mega churches, they have mega budgets. And so they have people getting staff that are, you know what I mean, are paid to do it. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of different when you're paid to do it, when you're not paid to do it. You know what I mean? And so, and then smaller churches just don't have the budget to hire on people. So they expect the members to do everything. You know what I mean? And, or the churchgoers or whatever you want to call it. So, I would say Burnt Out would be more in a smaller church than a bigger church. What would you think?
Yeah, I think at first glance, yes, I think it would happen in smaller churches more, just because, like you say, there's less staff members and less people to do the particular work that the church wants to get done. But I also think it's prevalent in, mega churches as well. And I think, and I guess that points to, this is a church culture problem, not necessarily a big church, small church thing, right? Like, I think we've maybe gotten out of focus on what it means to one another and to serve the body. But I do think that burnout exists in any community. And I think that's primarily because the expectation is the same. In a large church, I think this story, the part of this story that really relates to that is that you do a lot of things as a leader, as an example for other individuals in the church to participate, which ends up causing you to have to be at everything. Okay. So anytime the church doors are open, if it's, Bible study, if it's a conference, if it's a retreat, if it's Sunday, like whatever it is, you have to be there because you are expected to be an example to the community. In a smaller church, I think that ministry guilt is there primarily, I think, is around the fact that there's nobody else there to do it. You know what I mean? And so it ends up falling on you. You know what I mean? Let me ask you a question. When we were planning the church, I think I was trying to be very careful with this. But the expectations that people would have, even for, you being my wife, did you feel any type of guilt to have to, do certain things or behave a certain way? You know what I mean? Like, we didn't adopt any of that first lady stuff, nothing like that.
No.
But did you ever feel any guilt? Any guilt, or I feel like you had to lead like women or anything like that?
I didn't, because and I expressed that, that I'm right here with you ladies. Like, I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not
yeah.
special.
Yeah.
I'm not, no, and, just coming out of, I would say it's prevalent in a black church.
Yeah.
And so, although we were in multiple churches, when just with a black church, it's like, ooh, first lady, and it's like, no, please don't call me first lady.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Because that separates me from everybody else. And then
Absolutely.
when you start calling me first lady, now it's like you have these expectations for me that, I'm probably not going to, abide by.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So let's just cut that right now.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
I don't think so. Now in other places when you were on staff or anything like that and you were in ministry or pastoring, I did kind of feel like there were some expectations on me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, we tried to guard against that, but that I think is a part of church culture,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? In general, just to, I don't know, just that whole ministry guilt thing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of service, I think this is huge,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Because, our primary call, let me rephrase that. Obviously, the scripture is clear that when we enter into the body of Christ, that we adopt a new family.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a very familiar relationship, family relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Familiar? I feel like
familiar.
No.
Familial.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Thank you, babe. But yeah, it's supposed to be a very family-oriented, styled relationship because I don't think I could say the word.
I know. I'm like, you made me say
avoiding
the
it.
word, and then
But where Jesus clearly says, "Listen, my mother, brother, sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles, whomever are the ones who are doing the will of God or fulfilling the will of God," right? So we take on a different family as well.
Yeah.
But the reality is that doesn't mean, in the context of that, it doesn't mean that you forsake your own family to a large degree, right? Like he's not putting a dichotomy between how we disciple our those who we are in relationship with versus how we relate to one another in the community, right? He's just saying that you're no longer committed to your family differently than you're committed to the family of God. That commitment there is the same. You sacrifice in the same way for the body of Christ that you would for your own family. And in fact, I think he's drawing out that analogy based on how you would treat yourself and your own family.
Right.
I think the problem is that church culture has hijacked service, has hijacked one anothering to where faithfulness and serving is done only or mainly in the context of a Sunday gathering or a church. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and so the way that we fulfill God's call to one another and to serve, we do that in church, quote unquote.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, so then the commitment becomes you need to be here and do that, right? Because this is how you fulfill, right, the law of God to serve one another, right? So the church becomes the place where, where people fulfill their call, right? So what you do at home is not an extension of what you do at church. What you do at home is separate. We need you to be faithful here. And it's really guilt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let me just real quickly just define what ministry guilt might feel like for some people, right? Ministry guilt feels like you are not doing enough in the community. Like you might feel like I need to do more, or being made to feel like I'm not doing enough within the community. Like when you feel guilty that, man, I should be there, right? And I've dealt with this a lot, with missing Sundays.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Like in terms of if I don't go to church on Sunday, man, I used to feel really guilty. You know what I mean? Like, man, if I miss a worship service, I would feel this guilt and shame. And you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's because that's, like faithfulness is marked by how you show up to this event, right? Versus how you're actually living those things out.
Yeah. I will never forget when you were working back and you had got that training position and wasn't in church and you had to go to, I believe, Florida for like 3 weeks, right? And I will never forget. So I went to church on Sunday like normal, And someone that came up to me and was like, "Oh my gosh, I cannot believe your husband's, out of town and you came to church." I was like, "So did you think I only came to church because of my husband? Like, or that I had only husbands and wives come to church?" Like, I was confused.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I come to church not for just something to do with my husband.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I come to church because this is where I want to be, and I'm, all that's, I don't need to get all into that, but
good.
still, but I was just like shocked that, like she was giving me kudos for coming to church when my husband wasn't home. I was like, that is crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
That is crazy. And now this person wasn't married, so I don't know what else was probably going on in that person's head, but still,
yeah,
it was weird to me. Very, very weird.
Yeah. And we're going to have that conversation too. I think that would be a valuable conversation to have as singles in church, because I think that there is a big gap there. Somebody made a comment that I think is worth talking about when it comes to that. But yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
And I think, again, going back to the guilt part of feeling like, again, that everything is being pushed towards this one event, right? This, if we're not serving, quote unquote, the church, right? Which is problematic. Again, just the terminology for me, I think, is just super dangerous, right?
Yeah.
When we're not serving in the church, then we're not serving at all, right? I used to always, feel uncomfortable when pastors would say from the pulpit, they would say things like, we're not praying enough. You know what I mean? And I know what they're saying. They're talking about corporate prayer. But it was interesting to me because they're basing the faithfulness of people's prayer on their participation in prayer at this specific place without regarding whether or not or why individuals aren't able to make that prayer or to make that priority to go to that specific event to pray. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so, again, it almost puts guilt on people for taking care of themselves, their family.
Yeah.
And it actually makes them make choices that I don't think the gospel calls us to make choices on. You understand what I'm saying? Like, again, if everything we do is to the glory of God, then that means everything we do is a sign of discipleship to those whom we are around, those we love, those we're ministering to, right? So how I take care of my family is also a very important way that I'm showing others what it means to be in the love of God and to reside in the love of God and what the love of God looks like.
Right.
But if I'm neglecting my family because I'm spending all of my time here, and my family doesn't get all of me, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And I've been guilty of this. And just being honest, we've had arguments concerning this where I've come home and you're like, you've said this to me, like the church gets the best part of you. You know what I'm saying? Like, they get the best part of you. I come home and I got to go into caregiver mode and you know what I mean? And I'm, my needs aren't being met because, all of your time goes to the church.
Right.
And sadly, being immature, I didn't know how to deal with that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, because I'm thinking I'm doing the right thing. I'm thinking that this is what I'm supposed to do. Right. But the reality is that, there is no dichotomy, and neglecting those things is a problem and sinful. And it's also sinful to call people to serve the church in a way that's unhealthy for where they are, in their life. It's not a bad thing for people to take care of their family. Now, I'm not talking about unfaithfulness. I'm not talking about people who, I'm not talking about people not making hard choices or, hey, I'm going to, I'm not going to one another with a community because I'm going to go to, I got, season tickets and, like, okay, I get that. All right. There's some things there that you probably should think through. Not that I'm saying that you can't have season tickets or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, we all got to check our heart for idols.
Yes.
Okay. We all got to check our heart for things that may be keeping us away from what God desires for us, especially as it relates to one anothering. However, the church laying guilt on those who aren't serving, or lays guilt on those to serve more, and uses that as a tool to or as a mark of faithfulness to God based upon their commitment to this church, that to me is a problem. You know what I mean? And so here's another aspect of this whole thing that I think is important. You know, a lot of churches base your ability to like service is the way that you actually can participate in certain ways in the community, right? So if you're not faithful, right, you can't teach here. If you're not faithful, I'm not saying you should, I'm just saying if you're not faithful, you can't serve on this ministry if you're not, right? So your service is your entry into life within that community, right? Even to the point where churches, when it comes to benevolence ministries and, you know,
giving to others or helping people,
right? They look at your membership and your giving record and, you know, are you faithful? And you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it becomes a gateway to even have needs met, right? Which further promotes the guilt of people saying, I have to go, right? They're not even there present.
Yeah.
They're there physically, but they're not there presently. They're not there in the moment.
Right.
But they're there because they're saying, like, if I don't, then that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I just think it's a problem. You know, whenever ministry puts guilt or shame on a person, that's not ministry. Whenever service makes you feel a certain way, as if you're not doing enough, that's a problem.
Yeah.
I've even known people who have stepped down from service to sit at the feet of Jesus because they felt like it wasn't that time and have gotten reprimanded for it. And it's a problem. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so you just want to take from the community. You don't want to give to the community. Well, you know, Jesus rebukes, you know, Martha or Mary. Which one is it?
I know we always
Martha.
get that confused.
You know, he rejects Martha, you know, for serving while her sister Mary is like sitting at her feet, right?
Yeah, at
his feet, right? And so that is the place that we want to be, and then it's out of that we want to actually serve. So anyway, I just want to, you know, kind of point this out, right? There's other aspects of this that I think, you know, should be talked about, the exploitation of of service and stuff like that to keep the system moving forward. But the reality is that ministry guilt is something that's real, and it could lead to burnout, anxiety, even questioning one's faith. You know what I mean? And, you know, so again, I think this is super important. I know I said this already, but one last thing. I think one aspect of this that's really important as well that we need to realize, and why we need to stop telling people directly or indirectly that their service to the Lord is primarily done by their faithfulness to a community, a church community through the week and on weekends, is that I think it malforms a Christian's identity to understand that they're on mission and that they are called to one another in the world. Okay. So ministry is not something that is only done at church. Ministry is something that we do because it's who we are. And so your job is a mission field, and you're serving, right? So instead of asking people, hey, are you faithful in the context of, are you serving the church? The question is are you faithful in being the church wherever God has placed you, right? And that faithfulness should be the mark, not the faithfulness of, okay, what has this person done for this particular community? What has this person done here? You know, is this person here every time the church opens up their doors? And I'm going to tell you, old school people know it. We had people who understood. We had preachers who would come to the church and say, I'm a preacher. You know, they come with their letter, you know, and say, hey, I'm coming from this church. I'm a letter. And they know the way to get to the pastor's heart, the way to a pastor's heart is to be at everything and sit in the front row and comment on everything. And they know that the way to do it is to be faithful, quote unquote, faithful. And again, we got to stop doing that because it misinforms, malforms, and does not highlight that we are people who are on mission. What it does is it limits our ability to one another to a specific day of the week or to a specific place when those things need to be done in the world. And that would include the home. If your home is broken and you're still out there serving in the church, you're out of order. Period. Period.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? If serving the church is causing suffering at home and your kids are watching you, they're building resentment.
Right.
They're building resentment. They won't love God or love the church. They'll actually hate it. They'll see it as an enemy. Right. You know what I mean? And so anyway, I know our folks probably have a lot to say. Any last words? Any final words, Lisa?
No, that's good. I love this. This was a, good topic, Lisa.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, seriously. Great job. And so, you want to do our outro?
Sure. So, we out.
How about, please like, rate, subscribe. Okay.
Please like, rate, subscribe. Check us out on Instagram.
Yep.
Follow us.
Yep.
Keep the comments rolling.
Yep.
And we'll see you when we see you.
Yep. We out.
Peace.
Peace. Good job. Good job.